Hey everyone, welcome to Grounded with John Tester and Maritza Giorgio. How you doing, Senator? We matched today. We're wearing green.
Yeah, I got the email. Yeah, it's good. It's good. I don't know that there was an email sent, but I got it. All right, and it said I'm wearing green flowers. Those are flowers, aren't
Yeah, it's kind of tropical.
they? Green vinage, and so you got to wear something green. So I got out the card heart. What can I say?
Amazing job. So
No,
today,
it's amazing that nothing has happened since the last time we visited
stop.
here.
You stop it.
Okay, I will.
Is there one thing that stands out to you that's like been the most shocking since we talked? I mean, we talked on Monday with Ellie Leonard.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I got a little message from you yesterday that talked about how the what was it, Fox News, CBS, CNN, TikTok will all be controlled by the president after this merger threat bullshit comes to fruition. It's unbelievable how major media, by the way, under the supervision, CBS, Barry Weiss, is folded up like a cheap hooker at a bankers convention. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. Sorry, that's a bad knock on the bankers. They're good people.
So that is the concern for sure. I don't even have that. There's so much news to cover that I don't even have that in my headlines to go over. But let me just pull that back up because yeah, that's crazy.
Well, I mean, anytime. I mean, it's an opportunity, I guess, to set up another news network. Not that that's real easy to do, but I mean, anytime you get the media consolidated, so it's not free, it's not big, it's not fair, it's slanted. I mean, how do you expect people to understand what the hell's going on out there? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
And that's after we saw the whole thing with Colbert this week when he had James Tallarico. Was supposed to have James Tallarico on, and you know they're conflicting.
They implemented the fairness doctrine, for Christ's sakes. It hasn't been around since the Reagan administration. Now, I'm going to tell you, there's some benefit to putting the fairness doctrine back in, but not just when it applies to Democratic candidates. You can't say, well, now it applies. You can't have this person. You can't have this person because if you do, then it's against the rules. There are no rules, for God's sakes.
There are no rules.
It's unbelievable.
It's the Wild West again. Okay, so today we have a conversation with David Becker. He is a very prominent election security expert, super smart guy, super smart, intimidatingly smart. He's a lawyer, and he's also the executive director and founder of the nonpartisan Center for Election Innovation and Research. So we chat with him about all these questions and concerns about the upcoming 2026 midterm elections. A lot of you are expressing concerns about those.
I think everybody needs to be concerned about it. I mean, the truth is the president knows that his policies are they're not, people ain't buying what he's selling. Let's just put it that way, except for about 20% of the people. And he knows it. He sees it. He sees the results. So we got to figure out ways to make the results different from what they normally would be. It'll be an interesting conversation.
I just realized I took my microphone off. Have you been able to hear me?
No, but it's been the best part of the podcast we've ever.
Yes. My brain is not firing correctly today.
I've been able to hear you. Yeah.
Apologies, folks. All right, let's do some headlines before we play our conversation with David Becker. So, breaking overnight, huge news. British police arrested the former Prince Andrew after new information revealed that we talked about with Ellie Leonard on Monday in those Epstein files. So he was arrested on suspicion of misconduct while in office. If convicted, he could face life in prison. Now, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, his new name, was stripped of his royal titles last year. Of course, his brother is King Charles, and the king said that the law must take its course. What do you think? Is this the first big domino, Senator?
Well, remember, this is happening in the UK, and so they're holding people accountable, which should be done everywhere, regardless of how much political power or money they have. People need to be held accountable. Now, that being said, I think there's some people that are being mentioned in the Epstein files that, were not pedophiles, but for the pedophiles, folks who were racketeering and money laundering, They need to be held accountable, 100%.
Okay, so we continue to track that. I've actually chatted with Ellie Leonard quite a bit more this week, because after that episode, people keep sending me things and all kinds of stuff and all kinds of examples of how sloppy this rollout and the release of these files have been. And so I'm hoping that she will uncover some more, that we can bring her back on the show. I know she'll uncover more. That's what she's doing. But
there's no doubt about it. I mean, 3.5 million pages. She's going to uncover more. I guarantee it. And I think some of the sloppy rollout was sloppy intentionally, and I think some of it was sloppy unintentionally.
Well, so one of the things that I had that conversation with my mom this morning, she said, I feel like that this might be intentionally being done from people who are trying to kind of resist within the DOJ. And that's an interesting thought. But one of the things that they did is they've released all of these files that are video files, but they've released them as PDFs. And some internet sleuths found out if you just go save those files and change the ending label from PDF to MOV, well, by golly, you can just play those videos. So that's what's happening. So we're going to see a lot more. In immigration news, though, I want to talk about this. The Trump administration is now giving ICE officers the okay to detain legal refugees who are waiting for their green cards, basically to re-vet them. So these new guidelines say that these refugees can be taken into custody for mandatory interviews. Now, a U.S. district judge has already said that the feds have likely violated federal law by arresting some refugees for more vetting, putting a lot of fear, though, in these refugee communities for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, it's not the rules that are set up. The rules are pretty weak. We do need an immigration system that works and allow immigrants to come into this country legally. But to do this is absolutely ridiculous. And I will say at some point in time, businesses are going to have to speak up, because I think getting employees is going to become harder and harder and harder. We're already seeing impacts with people not coming to this country, taking vacations and that kind of stuff. Now they're going to go out and they're going to detain legal folks who have immigrated to this country. I mean, I don't get it. I mean, well, maybe I do get it, but the truth is that this doesn't make much sense to me. Remember, the president said he was going to go after the awful criminals, the murderers, the rapists, all those folks, and we're seeing 5-year-old boys being arrested and second-grade girls being arrested and U.S. citizens being shot and killed, and people dying in prison camps. I mean, it's just about as un-American across the board as you can possibly have. And where is Congress? Come on, guys. I love you all. Step it up. Do something.
Well, let's add another little face to that storyline. Okay, so this is little 2-month-old Juan Nicholas, and the feds actually deported this little boy. He had bronchitis, and they deported this little boy to Mexico along with his mom and his sister. So here's the backstory here. Representative Joaquin Castro has been following this along with little Liam Ramos, who he went down and visited and got released from Dilley in Texas and sent back home to Minnesota. But Representative Castro said that the feds deported this little boy, 2 months old, Juan Nicholas, after he was rushed to a hospital this week, and he was unresponsive there with bronchitis. So Castro said that after the baby was released from the hospital, the family was pretty much immediately deported and left the country with only $190 they had in a commissary account at the detention center.
I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, who are these people? Really? Do they have a soul? Do they have, who are these people, and why? I mean, I don't get it. I mean, it kind of takes me back to Booker's takedown of the racists that they were going to put in the State Department. I mean, is that why? Is that why? Because the people that are doing this just hate people of color? I don't get it at all. I just don't get it. how do you justify that? I mean, if anybody that's out there that's got a kid and have seen that kid born and raised, how do you justify doing that kind of stuff? I mean, I don't understand. I just don't.
Well, and you think about the fear when your baby is sick like that in the hospital, and then all of a sudden you're deported with virtually no money.
Right.
I mean, and you know, you want to talk about deporting the worst of the worst and prioritizing the worst of the worst.
Yeah, but they also have, you know, certain numbers they have to hit too. So maybe this helped with their quotas. It's crazy.
Wendy's making the point, and she's right. So many kids are getting sick in these detention centers. We know Liam Ramos was sick. We heard reporting that the food was not only undercooked, but there were worms in it. So much to keep reporting on and uncovering, and we're going to continue to do that here. But yeah, pretty. I don't know, hard to read news there. Happening today in DC, the inaugural Board of Peace meeting, where the president already announced that 9 members of the new Board of Peace agreed to pledge $7 billion combined for a Gaza relief package. It's about 10% of what's estimated to be a $70 billion bill to rebuild Gaza. So the countries will, in addition to that, Indonesia, Morocco, Kazakhstan, Kosovo, and Albania all pledged to also send troops for a stabilization force in Gaza. What do you think?
Who are the countries that pledged the money?
Well, come on, Senator. I don't have that list handy.
I wonder if it's Indonesia, Morocco, Kazakhstan, Kosovo, and Albania, because that's about the right number. But if you look at the folks that said no, you know, Canada, France, Germany, Sweden, Norway. I mean, UK. These and you know, Trump should be congratulated. Canada or
no. Those are the countries who aren't involved.
That's right. These are the countries that said they're not going to join. I didn't make
that. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
They ain't coming in. Okay,
I was just looking up which countries donated the money.
Yeah, but you know, Canada, our best friend in the world. You know, Trump revokes his invitation. I mean, look, we are on the cusp of going to war with Iran. If you look at what's been going on and the assets that have been shipped to the Gulf. If folks expect China and Russia just to step back and let this happen, and if they expect things like the UK and Germany and France and Italy and Canada to come to our defense, man, I'll tell you what, I don't see it, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. He's broken down all the alliances. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So we'll see. See what happens.
Okay, here are the countries who pledged the money. Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, United Arab Emirates, Morocco, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Uzbekistan, and Kuwait. And then the U.S. pledged $10 billion.
Yeah. Enough said. I mean, you take a look at that list, draw your own conclusions. I'm not going to draw them for you.
Okay, I'm just going to jump to this last little thing before we head into our conversation with David Becker. Did you see this video about making America healthy again?
No, could you play it?
All right, ready, folks? Here we go.
Maha. Who put this out? Did the U.S. government put this out?
The U.S. government put this out. The U.S. government, the Department of Health and Human Services.
Our tax dollars at work.
So this is, let me pull the music down as much as we want to revisit that era of music. Okay, so this is a video, and it is Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Health and Human Services Secretary, along with Kid Rock, basically just posting a big workout video. At one point,
did he flip the bird? Did he just?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. So at one point, the secretary gets down. He takes his shirt off. he is working out in like a sauna with Kid Rock, and then he gets into a cold plunge with jeans on. Then he goes and jumps in a pool with jeans on, and then these two, I think they're playing pickleball there, and then these two start drinking whole milk.
They're pickled in the pool. In the pool, they're drinking whole milk. Yeah,
yeah, there you go, whole milk in the pool.
Well, I mean, I like whole milk too. I mean, hey.
Just kind of not something I was expecting to watch yesterday.
Yeah, well, not something I expect the American taxpayer to pay for yesterday or today. But I mean, you gotta do what you got to do. I mean, I heard the Kid Rock halftime show wasn't the best, so you got to try to recoup yourself somehow.
Yeah, he misses making music videos. Maybe we have a lot of really funny comments about this, but I do want to mention that your buddy Steve says that he actually really likes your outfit today, and he's not just joking around. So
that's good. I know Steve, and Steve, you will pay for that compliment later from Cyber.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry guys, sorry everyone that we showed that video. Everyone is like, my eyes.
Everybody's gone blind now. I mean, they got to put sunglasses on because their eyes are bloodshot.
Okay, so here is the deal. Here is our conversation with David Becker. Thank you all for hopping on live with us, and we'll be watching for your comments. All right, here you go. Welcome now to Grounded, our guest today, who is David Becker, prominent election security expert, a lawyer, and the executive director and founder of the Nonpartisan Center for Election Innovation and Research. Thanks for being with us, David.
Great to be with you both. Thanks for having me.
It is great to have you here, and in fact, quite timely, as you know, David. We've been hearing a lot of things. I got to tell you before we start out, and I've said this before. I don't know if I've said it on this program before, but when I was in the state legislature, my first year was 1999. Both parties worked together to try to make voting easier. They both thought the best way for a democracy to work was if the more people that voted, the better off it was. Now it seems like voter suppression and trying to keep certain people from voting is the way democracy works best. And it's just crazy. And that's why I'm really glad you're on the show today, because we can flesh some of that stuff out. And I don't know if you want me to ask the first question or if you want to, Marisa, but my first question is I just want you to confirm that voter fraud is something that is literally non-existent in the United States today. Now, if it isn't, tell me, John, you're full of shit. It really is a problem.
I can't say that it's literally non-existent. The amount of voter fraud in the United States isn't zero, but it's really close to zero. I mean, voter fraud is something we have a very good handle on. And my organization, the Center for Election Innovation and Research, we're a nonprofit. We work with election officials all over the country of both parties. And as you pointed out, Senator, when you talk to the real professionals who run elections, there's not a lot of disagreement on how to do things. They want voting to be easy. They want there to be integrity. The most conservative election official out there doesn't want to accidentally disenfranchise an eligible voter. And the most liberal election official out there doesn't want to accidentally give the vote to someone who's not eligible. They all agree on this. And so when you look at the actual amount of fraud that there is out there, votes cast by ineligible voters, non-citizens on the voter list, we actually have a really good handle on this. This is not just because groups like mine have done research, which we have, but this comes from the Trump administration itself and some states that are aligned with the Trump administration. If you look for non-citizens on the voter list, again, it's not zero. There are a small number who accidentally get registered, usually through no fault of the individual, usually because the state made a mistake. We know this from places like Texas and elsewhere. But the Department of Homeland Security reviewed about 50 million voter records from states aligned with President Trump. And they found that 99.98% of all of those records had documented citizenship attached to them, and that only 0.02% were questionable. That didn't mean they were non-citizens. They just couldn't prove that they were definitely citizens. This is what we're seeing in other states. When they actually look at their voter records, compare them with the citizenship documentation they have on file at motor vehicles and elsewhere, they find a handful, single digits, maybe a couple of dozen. Usually it's an error by the state. Almost none of them are voting. So voter fraud is something we should always try to get to zero. That's not a bad thing, but not at the expense of disenfranchising an eligible voter, because the problem is just not that significant.
What about folks who vote more than once?
That happens. It happens very rarely again. This is not necessarily something that has a partisan dynamic to it. It looks like when it happens, it's just as likely to happen amongst Republicans and Democrats, usually in the single digits. There's a really wonderful tool out there that half the states use, which is called the Electronic Registration Information Center, ERIC for short, ERIC, that I helped develop, where the states voluntarily join this entity, ERIC, that they themselves run. And they share data between the states. And one of the things they share is the voter history after every major election to see if there were potential double voters. And they find a small number. Now, one of the ironies here is hardcore right-wing conspiracy theorists targeted ERIC for disinformation. And it led to several Republican states that are supposedly alleging that election integrity needs to be improved, that there needs to be voter fraud. They withdrew from this system that is one of the best systems to identify potential voter fraud. If someone votes twice, it happens again very rarely, maybe a few dozen times in an entire national presidential election. But if someone does vote twice, they should be investigated. And if they did it intentionally, they should be prosecuted. There's no question about that.
Yep. You're muted. Man, oh man.
My dog was
You're the
barking.
pro we're relying upon, Maritza.
You're going to lose your reputation of being the brains of this podcast if you keep that up, Maritza.
My dog was barking. I was saving you all from her yips. I mean, okay. So there's so much to unpack with all of that. I want to ask more about ERIC. But just to prove your point, David, I pulled this screenshot from a New York Times article, and it showed that like all of these states have been pumping their voter records through this verification tool run by DHS. Is that ERIC or is that separate?
No, DHS is a system called the SAVE system, SAVE, which stands for something that I can't remember off the top of my head. And that is checking DHS records. And what we're finding, there's a big article in ProPublica about it last week. I mean, it's not inherently a bad system, but it does generate a very high error rate.
Okay, so even with that error rate, look at this this paragraph from this New York Times article, and it says that in Charlotte County, Florida, the election supervisor there said that they found 15 out of 176,000 names she uploaded to DHS that they came back as non-citizens. And of those, 3 were mistakenly added to the rolls, never intended to register. They've been removed. 2 others already sent in documentation and to prove their naturalized citizenship. So there's already this program, and it's showing, even like you said, that there are errors there. Mm-hmm. It's showing that the amount of problems is really, really tiny. So I guess if there is this verification tool already run by the Department of Homeland Security, there is ERIC, which is a separate tool. Why do we need more? Why do proponents for more transparent voter data, why do they think there's a need for more when these systems already exist?
I can't answer that, obviously, because I don't think we need more. I think that there is a belief, and this doesn't only afflict the Republican Party. At times it afflicts the Democratic Party too, where they think they can pass one piece of legislation that's going to magically deliver election victories for them one way or the other. One of the great ironies about some of the legislation that's being proposed, like the SAVE Act in Congress, is while Republicans are pushing it because they've fallen victim to this disinformation about widespread non-citizen voter fraud, it's very likely that that act, if implemented, would have a more negative impact on Republicans than on Democrats, because there are disparities in passport ownership between Democrats and Republicans, with Democrats having significantly more. And more importantly, and Senator, you know this firsthand from having worked as long as you did in government, we should be looking for ways to get government to work for us more than we're looking for ways to make citizens work for government. Government already has documentation. If you apply for a real ID, you're showing proof of legal presence. The vast majority of people are showing their birth certificate or passport or naturalization certificate when they do that. Motor vehicles agencies have this. States like Georgia and many other states have proven this. They've looked for this and confirmed this data is in there. Why are we making people continually show their papers to government because government doesn't get their act together to share that data with other agencies and make sure it's already there? Why would they require us as American citizens to dig up our papers repeatedly, and as the SAVE Act would require, physically present ourselves in a government office to show this information over and over and over again?
You know what? That is a campaign slogan.
Yeah.
If you ever get tired of this election stuff, you might want to go start becoming a consultant, because
I might come up to Helena immediately.
Maybe we should run. What do you mean consultant?
Exactly. I want a government that works for us, not a government that makes us work for them. I mean, I got to tell you, that's music, man. You're the Mozart. You could be the Mozart of consulting.
I'm putting that on my business card now, Senator. Thank you.
Yeah, get them ordered, David. I mean, the thing is, and people write us about the SAVE Act all the time, and I think we should kind of do a little bit of a primer there. But that is such a great way of framing it. I mean, I haven't even really thought about that. Yeah, why aren't these offices talking to each other? Why aren't they using all of these tools that they have to share data?
In several states, they are, by the way. I mean, this is, like I use Georgia as example quite a lot because I think Georgia runs really good elections and has a really good government. I mean, and this is a government run by Republicans. So if you happen to be a Democrat and you like Democratic government, that's fine. Republicans are getting this job done in Georgia. They have about 99+% of their voters with citizenship documentation in the motor vehicles file, and they're using that. They're integrating that data with their other systems to demonstrate integrity of their systems, demonstrate transparency. You mentioned the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act has passed the House. It would require that every citizen, everyone who registers to vote, physically present themselves to a government office and show their documentation of citizenship whenever they conduct a voter registration transaction. In other words, when they become newly registered, when they move to another state, they'd have to continue to physically show up. Whereas most people register to vote now online, because those online systems take advantage of the motor vehicles agencies and they figure it out on the back end so that we don't have to work for government. SAVE Act would also require ID to be in order to vote. Most states already have that in many ways. This is a particularly restrictive form. And again, back to your days in the state legislature, Senator. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've worked with state and local election officials for a long time. The best places to make election policy are in the state legislatures, not in Washington, D.C., whether it's Democrats or Republicans. And fortunately, the founders thought that too, because they put primary responsibility for election policy in the hands of the state legislatures. They gave Congress a way to legislate as well. And they told the president of the United States, you have absolutely no power over elections in the United States whatsoever. And the wisdom of the founders still 250 years later is remarkable.
So why isn't that wisdom of the founders filtered down to wisdom in Congress?
Yeah, I don't know. You recall in 2021, the Democrats tried to do a pretty substantial overhaul of elections as well. I will tell you that Democratic election officials behind the scenes were not happy with that. They thought it went too far. It didn't pass through the Senate, and President Biden didn't threaten to sign it into law anyway through an executive order that would have been blocked, as Donald Trump has done with the SAVE Act. But I think, what we're seeing is in Washington in particular, these political conversations where talk about voter fraud and voter suppression, et cetera, are overwhelming the real conversations that are being had by the election professionals, the people who actually run elections. And when election policy works best, that's who's driving the discussion. Talk to the secretaries of state, talk to the county election officials in your area, ask them what really works. Because even if you think you're going to somehow game the system to deliver victories for your party, the chances are that whatever you pass isn't going to have that effect at all. So let's just try to make these systems work for the American people and listen first at the state and local level to the election officials who are running it.
This is making a lot of sense, which, you know, we don't like.
I've
to
never
do
heard anyone say that about me before.
You and Senator Tester are in the same camp there. Just kidding, Senator.
No, David, remember, this is the lady that started this conversation off on mute. So, I mean,
That's right. But I do want to, let's talk a little bit more. Okay, so the SAVE Act is, like you said, it's passed the House. A lot of doubt over it passing the Senate, of course. But as you mentioned, the president, Donald Trump, has basically said if Congress doesn't pass this, he'll do it by executive order. So is there any scenario, any avenue where that would stand up?
Maybe in the recesses of the president's brain, but outside of that, no. Look, the Constitution could not be clearer. There are places where the Constitution is vague and needs some interpretation, but the Elections Clause of the Constitution, Article 1, Section 4, says that the time, place, and manner of regulating elections belongs in the state legislatures. Congress can also regulate. The president is not mentioned anywhere. The president has no role whatsoever in election policy. And the reason we know that's going to hold up, even if he tries to do it, is that he signed an executive order back in March of last year where he attempted to dictate policy on things like mail voting and proof of citizenship and certification of voting machines. And that was immediately challenged. And now that's been blocked by 3 different federal courts. You know, he's directed his Department of Justice to seize very sensitive voter data on hundreds of millions of Americans, not just the names and addresses that are in the public list, but the social security numbers, the driver's license numbers, and the dates of birth, the holy trinity of identity theft, which could put all of us at risk. They've tried to seize that, and they've sued 24 states and DC. And to date, the DOJ, again, has a perfect record. They're 0 for 3. They've lost in the state of Oregon and in the state of California. And just last week, they lost in the state of Michigan before a Trump-appointed judge, because there is no congressional authority for them to do this. So if the president tries to do this, it might be an attempt to message something, but it will have no legal effect. It will be blocked almost immediately when it goes to the courts. And I don't care what courts hears it, including the Supreme Court. I am 100% confident that no court in this country will give that executive order any effect whatsoever.
What did he get out of Georgia? Did he get that information out of Georgia?
So no, the information that they seized in the Fulton County raid, the execution of the search warrant there, which is I think of what you're referring to.
Yes, that's correct.
So Fulton County and Georgia were one of the only places where 2020 election materials are still being stored, because there was a court order to continue storing them. There's a federal law that says you have to store election materials for 22 months after an election. And state laws often agree with that. So most places have gotten rid of their materials from 2020, not because they're trying to cover up anything. Those ballots have been counted and recounted and transparently confirmed many times. But paper takes up storage space. They need to use the machines for the next election, all kinds of things. But Fulton County had to store it. So they executed this search warrant, and there were some materials, including absentee ballots, that they apparently took. We don't have a really great idea of this because they have not been transparent and cataloged what that information is. We're going to know a lot more next Friday. Friday, the 27th, there's an evidentiary hearing in district court in Atlanta, where for the first time a federal district court judge is going to question the government as to its basis for that search warrant. And I've commented on this publicly a lot since we've seen the affidavit that was unsealed. It is very flimsy. And I think it's highly likely that the court, and this is a Trump-appointed judge, this court is likely going to get Fulton County its materials back. But even if they don't, and even though they've been reviewed now for a few weeks, they're going to show what we already know they've shown, because those ballots were counted not once, not twice, but 3 times, 3 different ways, once entirely by hand in front of Trump campaign observers. We know what they will show. And, if there's a legitimate review of those ballots, it will confirm that Joe Biden won the Georgia election by about 11,000 votes, as we've confirmed multiple times.
You touched on a word that is pretty important in this whole equation, called legitimate. If there's a legitimate review of those ballots, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in this administration that I wouldn't be surprised if they don't try to doctor them some way. I mean,
well, and I think
how's that for faith in your government? For God's
sake? it's a completely valid point, and I think that there is when I talk to people all the time, I tell them, wait and see what the government actually says in court, not what various government officials post on Truth Social or on X or on friendly media, because it is easy to post something on X. I've seen government officials, high-level government officials in this administration, post and repost easily disprovable, ridiculous conspiracy theories about elections. We've seen defendants in defamation cases like Mike Lindell, who've lied about the election repeatedly, stand on courthouse steps during those defamation cases saying, we're going to blow the doors off this big election fraud. And every time when they go to court, they shut up. They don't say anything because they cannot subject any of these claims to any kind of cross-examination. Mike Lindell presented no evidence. Rudy Giuliani presented no evidence. Carrie Lake presented no evidence. Fox News presented no evidence in their defamation cases. Dozens of court cases that have confirmed the outcome of the election, and still not one court has found any problem with the outcome. They cannot, and I don't believe this Justice Department will, subject this evidence to any kind of cross-examination or scrutiny because it'll fall apart.
It reminds me of the Geraldo vault reveal with nothing in it.
The only thing that would make it even more similar to that is if Geraldo kept opening the same vault and kept saying, next time I open it, there's going to be something inside of it. I mean, if you follow these conspiracy theories, it's like, hey, there was a big press conference by Secretary Noem in Arizona last week where she was it was an election integrity press conference, and everyone was wondering what she was going to say. I was certain there was going to be nothing. There was nothing. But while she was in Arizona, there were a variety of high traffic X accounts spreading claims that the Maricopa County Election Office was being raided right now while this was happening. I was literally on the phone with election officials in Arizona. I'm like, are you seeing anyone? They're like, no, this is all made up. This is not happening. But they have to keep the grift going by repeatedly promising the evidence now over 5 years, over a year after they've held the entire federal government. The evidence is coming. The prosecutions are coming. They're not coming.
Did she fly on a 747 from DC to Arizona?
I've heard her aircraft was very nice. I will say that.
I want to know if it was held at Four Seasons Total Landscaping, Arizona.
They did take the press from one location to a secret secondary location for this press conference in a bus.
Right.
So
let me really quick. Do you know any states? Do you know any states that have voluntarily turned the information over to?
Yeah, there are several. There's about 10 plus states like Florida and Texas,
Montana.
Ohio. Montana may have. I think we're still trying to get the information on that. We're getting some mixed answers from the Secretary of State's office. I don't know whether her office turned over. And the key here is not the public list, but whether the unredacted list, meaning the list that includes the Social Security numbers, driver's license numbers, and dates of birth, was sent to the federal government. So there are many states that have done that, and I think they're going to regret it. Courts are ruling that DOJ doesn't have the right to this data. The DOJ is itself admitting it doesn't have the ability to protect this data. They had to make a filing last month in a federal court that they violated a court order by sharing this data with an outside, and this is their language, political advocacy group. Can you imagine any administration sharing sensitive data with a political advocacy group and that not being the top scandal of the entire administration? I don't know, that made the top 10 scandals 100%. Of the day.
But Texas was one of the states? Texas was one of the states?
Yeah, Texas is one of the states.
Yeah, and so let me get this right to recap. Somebody in Texas, probably the Secretary of State, sent documents that tells what every person who's registered to vote in the state of Texas, date of birth, driver's license, and social security number. Is that right?
That's correct.
My God, if that doesn't piss off the people of Texas on the election in November, I don't know what can. I mean, you want to talk about ripe for stealing identity. Holy mackerel.
I mean, from a privacy perspective, and obviously, I mean, there are voters all over the country. Montana is probably one of the states where privacy protections are most relevant.
That's correct.
I mean, can you imagine just shipping this data off to the federal government? By the way, can you imagine these same states agreeing to do the same thing under a Democratic president?
They would never do it. Would never do it.
And so the party holding the White House should not dictate how these law enforcement efforts are done and whether states will just cave and capitulate. I would be just as critical if during the Biden administration they had tried to seize this same data and a deeply blue state had just sent it off to the Biden administration.
100%.
I don't think it would likely happen, but and to their great credit, there was some good articles about it this week. Many of the Republican election officials have been just as resistant as Democrats to send that. The Secretary of State of West Virginia, very conservative, said, nope, this violates state law. The federal government isn't entitled to it. I'm not giving it to them. And several other Republicans have joined them.
Good for that person.
When I do want to know if there's like one specific conspiracy theory that like makes your head pop off, David. Like, is there one that you just don't ever want to hear ever again?
There are so many. I try not to play whack-a-mole. There's the dead Venezuelan dictator theory, of course. There's the Italian satellite that beamed malware to a German server, which changed all the software in the voting machines, which are not connected to the internet, and we have the paper ballots anyway. There's the bamboo ballots theory from...
I don't know about any of these, by the way.
Well, by the way, that's good. Then you're getting your news from good sources. Unfortunately, this is my job. That, in Arizona, there was this theory that the ballots had a high bamboo content, which meant they came from Asia, which meant that they were fake. That can't happen. But my favorite, I think, is that the Chinese produced a whole bunch of fake IDs, and they put them on ships and sent them to the United States to be used by fake voters to cast ballots. The problem with this is while those fake IDs might have been useful when we were all in high school and trying to buy a 6-pack of beer, that doesn't create a motor vehicles record for you. They're just a piece of plastic. And when you register to vote in the United States since 2002 under the Help America Vote Act, every single voter who registers needs to provide ID. We have ID in the United States nationally under the Help America Vote Act. Everyone needs to provide a driver's license number. If they don't have it, they can provide a social security number. And the very small number that don't provide either have to show ID when they show up to vote. So every single person has to do that. When you give them a driver's license number, they're not just saying, okay, check the box, there's the driver's license. They're checking it against your motor vehicles record. They're often checking it to see if you have citizenship documentation and other things in it. That's already happening. So this idea that you could change this is, with a piece of plastic that the Chinese created is crazy. But I think the one that really gets me is at the core of all these conspiracy theories is this idea that in 2020, the Democrats were out of power. They didn't hold the executive branch. Yet they somehow managed, and Senator, say what you want to about the Democratic Party. I can't imagine them managing much on this national level, but managing a national conspiracy of hundreds of thousands of people, half of whom are Republicans, to steal the election from a president who was Republican and controlled the entire federal government, and no one was talking. And then 4 years later, when those same Democrats held the entire power of the federal government, they forgot to do it again.
Yeah, what happened in your race, Senator?
That's at the core. That is a great point, Senator. Why didn't you steal the election again? I mean,
I'm going to tell you, I've had my misgivings with the Democratic Party, but this just elevates it to a whole nother level of misgiving. I mean, I'm just telling you, they didn't take care of old John. I mean, hey.
That's such a good point, though.
That's exactly right. And by the way, when Trump lost in 2020, there were many Republicans that won that cycle in the very same state that Trump lost in. So Democrats, as usual, don't do a very good job of making sure their voters are doing the right thing. And
if they're stealing elections, they're doing it really poorly. And as you pointed out, in state legislatures, Republicans actually had gains in state legislatures in 2020, right before we were going into a redistricting cycle. Which that's not something that would have ever been planned. Look, we have paper ballots nationwide. The only state without paper ballots is Louisiana. They're moving towards that. Every place else, 98% of American voters vote on paper. And that paper is audited. We confirm the results. It can be recounted in close elections. You can't hack a piece of paper. You know, you can't insert fake ballots in with the other ballots. Those ballots are special. They're connected to a particular voter off the voter list. We know that, you know, if anyone has any doubts, volunteer to be a poll worker. You'll see all the checks and balances that are in place. You'll see that there's complete transparency and verifiability. And it's unfortunate to see people who are sincerely disappointed by election outcomes, as we all have been in our lives, to see them be targeted by grifters who want to tell them you didn't actually lose, it was stolen from you, and then fundraise off of that. It's really, I have sincere sympathy for people on both sides of the aisle who've experienced that.
Yep.
The thing about all these conspiracies, though, and I'll just be brief, Senator, but one of my we were talking about this at my book club this last weekend, and one of my very brilliant legal friends was talking about how, yes, there's such like a minuscule amount of proof of any kind of voter fraud. It's so teeny tiny, a fraction of a percentage point. But that as these conspiracies continue, it is casting doubt on the security of our elections processes, on our confidence in the system. So she said, well, maybe we do need some kind of reform to better build up the confidence of all of the American people. What would you say to that, David?
I would say our foreign adversaries have been trying for decades to get us to disbelieve in our system of governance and elections. And Russia and China in particular are actively engaged in that, and they have been for some time. And now they find their jobs a lot easier because they no longer have to create fake content. They can use content that's created by Americans and amplify it. It's a real problem. The simple fact is, our system is trustworthy. It is more secure than it's ever been. That doesn't mean it can't be improved. It can absolutely be improved. There are constant things, and we should talk to election officials about how we can improve it in a variety of ways. But we have paper ballots now. We have audits of those paper ballots. We have more accurate voter lists than we've ever had, and they're constantly getting better. People can trust that the results are accurate. By any objective measure, the 2020 election was much more secure than the 2016 election. In 2016, a significant number, if not all the votes in the states of Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia were digital, had no paper component, could not be recounted. I'm not suggesting there was a problem with that election. There is zero evidence of that. Donald Trump won the election in 2016 by rules that we can confirm and everyone knew. But by 2020, all 5 of those states had moved to all paper ballots. Georgia had paper ballots for the first time in 2 decades in 2020. And thank God for the leadership of Governor Kemp and Secretary Raffensperger and the Georgia legislature, all Republican, who made sure that was in place for the 2020 election. Because can you imagine where we would have been if there weren't paper ballots that could be recounted by hand and confirmed? Unfortunately, we see this across the political spectrum. There is a much smaller conspiracy theory that Kamala Harris did not lose in 2020, that the machine stole it from her. That is false. That is provably false. She lost the election. We can confirm it. And yet there are grifters who are trying to raise money around that by preying on sincerely disappointed supporters of Vice President Harris. This is wrong. Our system is secure, and there are tweaks around the edges we can do to make it more secure, but we should not be making policy based on conspiracy theories, whether it's elections or whether it's on health and vaccines, whether it's on economics, whether it's on immigration. We should not be doing that. And it used to be, as you pointed out, Senator, it used to be there were serious people on both sides of the aisle who would recognize that and speak out against their own who would spread these conspiracy theories.
David, I don't disagree with anything you said. Nothing. And by the way, I say that to very few people, including my wife. I mean, it's true that's what you said is spot on. Unfortunately, in politics, perception is reality. And these folks have put the perception out there that there's voter fraud, and they've got folks who shouldn't be voting, and they're voting multiple times, and all this bullshit. Is there anything that can be done around the issue of IDs? Because I haven't seen any polls on it, but my guess is it polls pretty high.
Yeah.
Is there anything that can be done around the issue of IDs that doesn't discriminate against voters and doesn't stop people from voting?
The answer is yes. And I'm not against reforms that don't disenfranchise eligible voters, don't create an integrity problem, and can provably increase confidence. There are states, Michigan is a good one, where there's an ID requirement, but if you don't have ID for some reason, you can't get one, or something as simple as you left it at home. You can fill out an affidavit, and you are swearing under penalty of perjury. You put your name, your address, and other information on there. If that is a piece of evidence, if there is a election fraud, you can go back to that piece of evidence and investigate it. We also know voter impersonation fraud, which is what ID would get at. That almost is zero. I mean, it's the dumbest crime you could ever commit. You're physically presenting your face in front of witnesses and claiming to be someone else. And that other person that person you're impersonating is going to try to vote, which is going to flag this for everybody. We know this happens. But if Democrats and Republicans in Congress or in the state legislatures wanted to get together, listen to election officials and say, hey, could we implement some things like some kind of voter ID that wouldn't disenfranchise eligible voters, that would boost confidence? By the way, there are some advantages to showing ID when you check in. Sometimes that can be scanned, so you don't have to spell your name if you've got an unusual name or something like that. There's some advantages to that too. It could speed in the check-in process. There are things that Democratic and Republican election officials would agree on, but unfortunately, again, I know you know this better than any of us, that's not where the conversations are being had in Congress.
That's right.
I had real hope in, I wish that on January 7th, 2021, Republicans and Democrats had come together and said, let's end some of this insanity, and let's come up with a short 20 or 30 page bill that reflects both of our priorities, that can assist election officials, maybe give them additional funding too, which is really important. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. We slipped back into the partisan dynamic pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, and the other thing is that you can say what you want, but I firmly believe that there's a lot of foreign countries that don't like us that are stoking this election crap.
Oh, there's no question. We know that for sure. You know this. Back in 2018, the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Marco Rubio, signed off on what President Trump now calls the Russian hoax, but that confirmed that Russia was actively engaged in disinformation operations against us in the 2016 election. In 2020, this is also confirmed by Trump's own federal government, that Russia was doing things like advertising on social media for a Black Lives Matter rally protest and an All Lives Matter rally protest at the same location, hoping that people would come in conflict with each other at those locations, seeking to divide us as Americans. All of this disinformation is playing right into the hands of our adversaries.
Absolutely. And by the way, if they have been successful, which I think they've had a degree of success, quite frankly, in trying to influence people, it has resulted in some profitability, because I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Marisa Giorgio, that the DHS just bought a warehouse from a Russian real estate firm that was sold 2 years ago for $29 million and was bought for $128 million here this last week. Is that correct?
Wow, you got that right, Senator.
Well, some things tend to stick with you.
David, I know we've gone long, but do you have a couple more minutes?
I got a couple more minutes, sure.
Okay, because we haven't talked about two really big deals. And that is this floating of this proposal to nationalize elections. Okay, I've read a lot of books about keeping and saving democracy, including this one by Joyce White Vance, and we'll have her on our show next week. But one of the safeguards that so many people say is, hey, our elections are secure and they're run by the states, and that ensures that we have safe, fair, free elections. When people hear that there's this proposal to nationalize the election, I've heard both angles on this. No, that would be terrible, or other countries do it too. What do we need to know about this?
I am a big fan of the United States Constitution and the founders' wisdom. And the founders, when they wrote our Constitution, wrote in the elections clause, they had just defeated a monarch, a unitary authority in a war, and they wanted to ensure, if there's one theme that runs through the entire Constitution, it is the limits on executive power. And it is incredibly dangerous to put something that you want to protect in one place. We don't run one national election. We run 10,000 little elections all over the country, which makes it effectively impossible to tamper successfully with a national election. It is one of the great security features of our election. And again, God bless the founders that they somehow perceived that 250 years ago. I have no way of knowing how they saw that at the time. We have the strength of our local public servants, and you know them, the people in the county clerks and their staffs. These people used to work in anonymity. They've been suffering abuse, threats, and harassment for over 5 years now because people believe they stole an election when actually they somehow managed the highest turnout in American history in the middle of a global pandemic. And their work has withstood more scrutiny than any election in world history. So that decentralization is a great strength. And just really importantly, the president can say nationalization all he wants. He can say he's going to make the SAVE Act law with the swipe of a Sharpie pen, but that's not going to happen. And every single person who has commented on that nationalization comment, from Senator Thune to Republican secretaries of state, other Republican members of Congress, had said, no, that's not what we need. We're not going to nationalize elections. So that is not a good plan. It's not a good plan if you're a Democrat. It's not a good plan if you're a Republican. Our strength is in our federalist system and our states and locals who serve the public and the communities in which they live.
Yeah, if you want to invite foreign countries to come in and screw with our election process, this is a great way to say the door's open. Come on,
yeah,
in, do what you want.
You know, and Maritza, to the point about other countries which do have a single national election authority, their elections are so much simpler than ours. We run the most complicated, complex elections in the world. Just look at any ballot you have this November. It's going to have dozens of races on it. The ballot for the person across the street might look different because they're in different legislative districts or congressional districts. In most places around the world, their major elections might have 1 or 2 races on it. It is much, much simpler for a national authority to manage something like that than to manage literally the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of different ballot types that we have to manage all across this country. Los Angeles County alone has 5,000 different ballot styles, maybe more, and then 20 languages to put those ballot styles in. Imagine Washington coming in and saying, we can do that better, not just for Los Angeles County, but for all 10,000 jurisdictions all over the country.
And as Senator Tester pointed out in a conversation about this, one of the countries that does nationalize elections is Russia. And look how that's going. Okay, my last question here that it is, there's so many things to talk to you about elections, but this idea about, there are a couple of things here. First of all, the GOP in Arizona introducing a bill that would require federal law enforcement presence at Arizona polls, coming just a few weeks after Steve Bannon called for ICE to surround the polls in November. I'm just going to put up US code here because it's very clear that it's illegal. It's illegal to deploy federal troops or armed federal law enforcement to any polling place. So this is being floated. Meanwhile, we have this clip that I want to play for you, and we'll talk about it.
Is another one of those critical infrastructure responsibilities that I have as well. And I would say that many people believe that it may be one of the most important things that we need to make sure we trust is reliable, and that when it gets to election day that we've been proactive to make sure that we have the right people voting, electing the right leaders to lead this country.
Okay, so that was DHS Secretary Kristi Noem speaking, saying to make sure we have the right people voting. So when we look at all of these things combined, what's your takeaway? What does all this signal to you?
So could you put up 18 USC 592 up again?
Yeah, let's do it.
That's a really important statute. There are powerful people in the United States that are scared of the voters. And they want the voters to be scared because it's hard to actually prevent a voter that wants to vote from going to the polls. It is not that hard to get a voter to self-suppress. It is not that hard to scare a voter. The majority of voters, of eligible voters in the United States, traditionally do not vote in midterm elections. The highest turnout we've ever had in a midterm election in modern American history is 50% in 2018. Voters default to not voting. And there are people who think they can scare voters away, and they might be right. And it's one of the reasons we have to tell people voting is going to be safe. It's going to be more convenient than ever. I am 100% confident of this. If anyone tries to order ICE or anyone else, and look at the third line on this page, under his authority to control any troops or armed men. This is a broad statute that says no kind of armed force can be present, stationed at a polling place for any reason. That is a crime. And the statute of limitations on that crime goes for 5 years, and that exceeds the term of this president. So anyone who's thinking about that should think very hard about that. This is not going to happen because it is illegal. It'll be blocked by the courts right away. But more importantly, there's a reason that people like Bannon are saying this on his podcast. It's because ICE doesn't actually have this capacity. ICE can barely surge beyond one community right now. They've hollowed out their capacity at the Department of Justice, which is down a ton of lawyers and experience. This is not going to happen. What we see in the States is that there is mail voting that is available to anyone who, for any reason, thinks that they prefer to vote by mail. In the vast majority of states, 2/3 of states offer mail voting without an excuse. 47 states offer early in-person voting, where you are if you think the feds are out to get you, you can pick the time and place that you're going to go vote. They're not going to be able to get you. They're not going to be there. No one is going to see this happening at their polling place. You're going to be able to vote in safety and convenience and in confidence, no matter who you want to vote for. And the more they turn up the volume on the fear, the more you can be certain of that. Because if they were actually going to try to scare people or be at the polling places, they wouldn't be advertising it in advance.
Good point. I hope you're right, by the way. I do hope you're right. My concern is they'll do it at certain polling places where they have enough manpower to do it. And once it's done, the toothpaste is out of the tube.
I think that's right. I think if it happens, it might happen in a couple places. I've talked to multiple people who are naturalized citizens or who are American-born citizens who might look differently than I do, who are worried about this. And all I can tell them is that's exactly what the people who are scared of voters want you to be.
That's right.
I am confident in this. If it happens in one or two places, it'll be stopped almost immediately. Once it's stopped, there should be more confidence that it won't happen in other places. Right. Take advantage of early voting. Early in-person voting, that's how I vote. Early in-person voting is wonderful. It's convenient. If you care about your vote being reported out among the very first votes, those are the votes that almost always are reported out first. And you get to see your neighbors serving in their polling places and thank them for it. I mean, one of the great ways to combat this dark period and what we see is happening, or the threats that are happening in our democracy, is to embrace the joy of our elections again and to turn it into a celebration. Everyone who's listening, find 10 other people, find people in other states, get a commitment that you're all going to vote. Make at least one of them someone who you know is going to vote differently than you. That's great. We can overwhelm the dark times with this positive joy. Elections are joyful, and they should be. I mean, the outcomes aren't always joyful. Half the country is going to be disappointed, but the actual process of voting is a wonderful thing. We should embrace that again and not succumb to the fear. I
feel like it's Christmas,
I do. Well, it's, you know what? I've actually said that before because I have anchored so many election night results coming in. And it does feel like Christmas because there are so many races, you don't know what's going to happen. And there are surprises, and there are surprises that are good for some people. There's surprises that are bad for some people. But it's like opening up all of these things that we really didn't know what was going to happen.
I remember every election on the first day of early voting, there are long lines, and there are people who see voter suppression. There are these long lines at these early voting sites. I'm like, that's not voter suppression. That's the first day of early voting. They can come back tomorrow. These people are excited about voting. These people are like, it's the first day. I'm going to go out there. It's like, wait, I mean, I don't personally celebrate Christmas, I'll tell you, but I'll say this. I don't know what it must be like to wake up at 5 a.m. and be the first kid down in front at the tree to open presents. It must be great. I mean, those are those people. We should be long lines at early voting. Hooray! This is fantastic. Like, I mean, look. If you don't like lines, I do advise wait to the second or third day of early voting. That's right. It goes down a lot. But, in Georgia, there will be long lines on the first day of early voting. There will be people who say that's voter suppression. And
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Come back
He,
to us, David.
he froze in the motel room. What can we
Uh-oh.
say?
Okay, I'm gonna take him off the screen and maybe he'll come back to us. Let's see. Oh boy. Hold on. You there?
Yeah,
there we
I'm
go.
here. I hope that wasn't my hotel internet.
It may have been, but that's okay. But I think that your point is well made, and we should be excited about voting. We should have parties and celebrate with our neighbors, because it is something that so many people all around the world wish that they had the right to do, like we do.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, sure. David, thanks for being on today. I appreciate
Thanks. This is a great conversation. I really appreciate it. I hope you'll have me on again.
Motel room and where? Somewhere in Florida.
I'm in Miami today.
Undisclosed location in Florida.
Yeah, it's a lot nicer outside than it is inside my hotel room right now.
Well, we just thank you so very much, David. Again, like no matter how much I read about elections, election integrity, security, every time I have a conversation with you, I learn more, and I thank you so much. Like I will be thinking about this for a couple days.
That's great. I so much appreciate it. It was great being with you. Like I said, have me on anytime.
And well, here's the deal. Maritza always offers this to everybody we have on our podcast. So I'll offer it to you on behalf of her, but you can come to Montana and she'll teach you how to fly fish. Okay.
I love Montana. I might take you up on that.
Come to Montana. I'll bring you to a river. That's as far as we'll get. I have equipment, but as far as we'll pull up YouTube. How about that? All right. Thanks, David. We'll see you soon.
Thanks to both of you. Talk to you soon.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
All right. Let's debrief that conversation, Senator. Okay. A few things. The part about the statute of limitations on that code about sending, armed people, armed troops, armed men to polling places, I never thought about that.
Well, I always looked at that. I never thought about it either, but I also never really picked up the part about it's just not military or ICE, it's armed people, which about embraces everybody, it's where it is. I also think a lot of this stuff on elections, I think the president's looking at the last election since 2024 and saying, you know what, we're getting our ass whipped. People ain't buying what we're selling in the policy realm. And so we got to do something so we don't get beat in 2026. And the point he made about powerful people being scared of their voters is so 100% spot on. That's why they're not doing town halls. They're not doing press interviews unless you want to talk about the Super Bowl. They're not doing anything out there to contact their Rotary clubs or their Kiwanis club or meeting people on the street and visiting with them about issues they're concerned about. And look, they're worried about it. That's why they don't want to do anything on campaign finance reform. That's why they're all about gerrymandering, where the elected representative picks their constituents instead of the other way around. And quite honestly, now they're going after voting. Why? Because they don't want to be subject to their voters. And I just really believe that's the case. And that's why all this stuff is coming to fore. Otherwise, I don't think you'd be hearing much about it myself.
It's going to be fascinating to see everything that's playing out this week. Certainly, a lot of this is coming to a boil, but we'll continue to follow this. If you have questions around this was a very meandering conversation, but if you have questions around this that you want us to talk about, please send them to us, because this is very important. This is very important.
I thought it was relatively focused.
It's me. I started off really weak with that mute button, and
that stuff happens.
It happens. You can't have an A+ day all the time. Okay, so here's the deal, folks. Tomorrow, I am traveling to Georgia to do some reporting, teaming up with the Save America movement to do some reporting on the ground about what you talked about earlier, Senator, about this warehouse that was purchased in Social Circle, Georgia. So talking to folks down there, digging into some things. Already, though, we're seeing a lot that just is raising red flags, right? Like you mentioned, the cost of this
Yeah,
facility.
and we also should preface this because Rachel Maddow talked about this when she
Yeah.
was on our show. These are big warehouses that they're buying thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of square feet that they want to convert into prison camps. And that's where our taxpayer dollars are going. And by the way, paid a Russian oligarch 5 times the value that he paid for it. I mean, or 4 times the value. But what's 30 million among friends, right? They
Right.
paid him $100 million more than they paid for it 2 years ago. It's crazy. If they wanted to do this, why aren't they buying unused prisons that are owned by people in this country to do what they're doing?
Which some of those private companies have said that we have facilities that we could just reopen.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of prison facilities around there that they could, rather than retrofit a huge warehouse. And well, you'll figure out what the ups and the downs of this is. But I'm going to tell you, it stinks. I mean, it just stinks in my book.
Well, and you think about just the conditions, right? I mean, I've started researching on this already, and the conditions and the violations already happening that we're seeing happen in Dilley. We talked about these kids that were sent to Dilley, and that was in Texas. I mean, that's just one facility. And already we're seeing all kinds of questions here around this. I mean, for one thing, the sale apparently went through in just a matter of days, which is unheard of. But also, concerning information just about even like logistical concerns like wastewater. This town that I'm going to is a population of less than 5,000 people.
Yep. Going to blow the wastewater system out of the water would be what I would think. But you'll see that you'll see it firsthand. But the other question here is a question I ask at every podcast. Where's Congress? Is this how Congress wants their taxpayer dollars spent? Because I would be surprised if they thought when they appropriated the money in the big, beautiful bill that it was going to be spent to buy Russian buildings to turn into prison camps. I'd be really shocked if they had pre-thought that. And Congress ought to be speaking up. I mean, it's crazy. And it doesn't make any sense. And our Article 1 folks need to step up to the plate and do their job.
Okay, so I will be doing that over the weekend. I'll be doing periodic updates just like I did when I went to Minneapolis. So send me anything you want to hear more about or have questions about. And then I'm going to meet you in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday. Don't look so excited.
It'll be good. It'll be fun. I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be good. There'll be a lot of good people there. Let's put it that way.
What's happening on Tuesday night, Senator, in Washington?
It's a group of folks that are getting together to rebuttal the State of the Union. The State of the Union is happening on Tuesday night, but actually, this is what's happening in the State of the Union. The State of the Union is, secondary to this event.
That's right.
But there'll be all sorts of podcasters there. There'll be all sorts of folks that are alternative media. Is that what you call it?
Influencers or new media, independent media. Yeah.
Some of which have been on this podcast, by the way.
Yeah.
And I don't know how it's going to work. So I'll just say, I hope we get a chance to talk to some of them and put it over the ground of the podcast to find out what they're hearing, what they're thinking about. And maybe we can twine them together so it kind of makes some sense. Unlike Maritza putting us on mute earlier today. So,
well, let's just mention too, this is a Defiance event, Miles Taylor's group. So we will be there and you're going to be on a panel, Senator, and you can go, and I'll link it in our Substack article here, but you can go and sign up for this and watch it virtually for free at home, or you can donate to the event. So it'll be a good one. We will post the information on our Substack channel. Let's talk about your hat before we go.
Well, I think it's Idaho Forest Group, right?
Yeah. We matched it. We're wearing green.
I'm a clothes horse. I just do this kind of stuff to make sure that people understand that I'm not colorblind. But just a little bypart. I've had this hat for a long time, but they really. I worked with them when I was in the Senate. I thought they were a good bunch of folks, and I hope they still are.
All right. Well, we want to thank David Becker with the Center for Election Innovation and Research, again, for coming on our show. Just a wealth of knowledge about all things voting. And we want to thank our friends at Pearl Jam for letting us use their music. We want to thank all of you, our listeners who joined us and viewers who joined us for this episode. And we will chat again soon.
Tally ho!